Welcome to the Savage Coil Guide. Today, I'm going to try and show how to deal with Melusine in Savage Coil Turn 2, or T7S. This is a gruesome fight which can take months for groups who run 2 days a week to clear, with multiple groups fall apart, but this is where the true static form after clearing it. Keep in mind, communication is essential in this fight, due to how many things that can go wrong at the same time. Quick reminder, this is a guide and not a rule. If your party is struggling or come up with a better solution, feel free to ignore this guide. It will also be preferred that someone other than Bard doing the shot call due to how big of a responsibility a Bard player have, preferably a melee player. Before we begin, I would recommend to make a party composed of double Bard for extra bind and insta debuff clans for certain mechanics. It's also going to be nice if you have a Paladin as an off tank, and a Ninja for emergency bind or slow. And same thing with T6S, I would not recommend to use physical range LB at the start since it will mess up with mechanic timing. Consistency is king. I also would not recommend to bring more than 2 ranged DPS player for reason that I will explain later. I'm going to have the dedicated version for Bard and Healer at the end because they have the most difficult job in this fight. Make sure to watch it since I'm pouring 1 month of the nitty gritty Kaider trick into a one video. This fight is divided into 4 phases, each with different challenges that build on top of already existing mechanic. We'll start with phase 1. This phase serves as a tutorial for our party on how to deal with an ongoing mechanics that will last the whole fight. Here's how it goes. After a couple of auto attacks and a cleave, the boss will cast Cursed Voice. This will grant 3 players a Cursed Voice debuff. This is always 1 tank, 1 DPS, and 1 healer. And when the debuff expires, the debuff player will shoot a cone AoE and petrify whoever is in that AoE for 1 minute. If a petrified player takes any damage, it will kill them. You cannot petrify any snake enemies, whether it's a main boss or the adds. Instead, the snake will get damage up buff. One damage up on the adds is survivable, but 1 damage up on the boss will eventually cause a wipe. So,
Check your debuff! Oh my goodness, it's not over! Check your debuff! Check your debuff!
here are some of my tips. If you haven't already, make sure you go to HUD layout, click on the status info, and click on UI element settings. Choose the split elements into 3 groups, and after that, scroll down to group 3 enfeeblement and change the element size to 160 to 200%. This will help make the debuff icon bigger, so it's more noticeable. You can also place the debuff icon close to your character model to help visibility. Important tip, I need you to listen properly. When the debuff timer is at 2, do not hit GCD. Hitting a GCD will cause your character to face towards the target, which can petrify everyone and cause a wipe. You will need to fight your ABC instinct from Modern Fight and intentionally lose uptime. If you didn't know, ABC means always be casting. This is not an uptime fight. This is a mechanic fight. Another tip is, if you're throwing out your voices, it is safer to throw it by going to the wall and facing outward, so there's less chance of you hitting someone. Of course, this will not work in all situations, but it's good to keep in mind. Healer tip, you can go to character configuration and go to target tab and turn off automatically face target when using action to be able to single target heal your party member without turning to face them. I don't personally use it because I just play better. XD. Another healer tip, when voice expire, it will interrupt your cast, so make sure to preemptively heal before the debuff expires. Also, fun fact, this is the fight where you will learn about the painful snapshot and server take jank, which can cause moments like this. That is close. No! After voices are thrown, the boss will spit Fireball which target 2 random DPS player. It does not target based on distance. My group tried with 2 Bard and 1 Summoner and it's random. And this is why I would caution against bringing more than 2 ranged DPS. This will hit around 3500, which is half the DPS max HP. 1 hit will not kill them, but 2 will definitely kill anyone who is not a tank. So it's important for both part player to not be near each other to avoid overlapping the fireballs and killing themselves. Fireballs are thrown after Cursed Voice and after Renaud spawn. So Bear Healer will need to cast their AoE shield and Regen Healer need to use their AoE regen when one of these 2 events happens. If done properly, the regen should be enough to heal the ranged DPS health to full before the next set of fireballs. 1 damage on a Melusine though can cause a ranged player to get 1 shot, which is why 1 damage up on Melusine is usually a wipe. A bit after the first fireball, 2 Renaud adds will spawn in the opposite side of the arena from each other. There are 4 possible ways that Renauds can spawn. Let me explain how Renauds works in Savages before explaining how to deal with them. First, Renaud will stand still for 5 seconds before they start moving towards the closest healer. Second, Renaud will change target to whoever damaged it first. This is shown with the green tether to the target. The Renaud will keep chasing their tether target until it is killed. If the target person dies, the Renaud will choose the closest person as their new target. Third, 1 hit from Renaud will one-shot anyone, including tanks, and the range is a cone in front of the Renaud. Fourth, Renaud have to be Petrified, after which they will die to any source of damage, including autos. Except for Healer Dot, which only apply the dot, not apply the damage in the beginning. Renaud cannot be re-petrified just like in normal. And if Renaud is not killed when Petrify is expired, the Renaud will gain movement speed in which it will start chasing everyone and mowing them down, causing a wipe. Now that I've explained how Renaud works, here's how we deal with them. The best way of kiting Renaud is to assign one bar player as a kiter. This player will then grab both Renauds and kite them to the south. The map is flipped, but fuck it. Imagine boss spawn is north, where they can bind the Renaud and try to line them up all together. Melusine will cast Curse Voice soon after, granting one of the healers a voice debuff, which will be used to petrify the Renauds. After they are petrified, make sure to not kill them because we are going to use them for later mechanics. Also, fun fact! A petrified Renaud will get a Curse Voice debuff on them. Another fun fact, Tank Reprisal will count as hitting the Renaud, causing it to tether to you instead of the kiter. So make sure to only use Reprisal when you know it is safe to do so. The boss will cast Petrification while your kiter is cutting the Renaud. Everyone will need to look away from the boss or they will be petrified. Petrification works just like voices in that it will give a damage up to the snake enemies and it will petrify Renaud if they are facing the boss. Really important! The snapshot happens after you hear the crackling sound or a small explosion around your character, not when the cast is finished. The way AoE works in this game is it applies debuff or damage to the player in random order one by one, not all at the same time. So do not turn back to the boss until you are sure it is safe. It is preferred that the tank will call out Patri since they would have the vision of the boss at all time and they don't have any other responsibilities. When Melusine hit 80%, a Deathdancer Adds will spawn. These adds spawn 3 times one by one in 30-second interval. They all spawn in this order: North, Southwest, and Southeast. The adds spawning north will spawn behind the boss and if they get hit by Petrification, they will receive a damage up. So, in order to avoid this, you can tank the main boss slightly off center on the line that is on the map. Alternatively, the way my group did it is to tank the boss in the west side for easier add space because most of future adds also spawn in the south side. Do whichever your groups prefer. The off tank will need to grab the aggro and make sure to burn the apps as soon as possible before the second one spawn. Really important! Some groups will have too much damage and they will push to 80% before second voice happens, which needed to freeze the Renaud. Adjust your rotation accordingly or hold your DPS. Make sure voices happens before the ad spawn. The last major mechanic is Curse Shriek. This will target a non-tank player with the Curse Shriek debuff. When the debuff expires, it will cause a rate-wide explosion, petrifying everyone. In order to avoid that, the player with the debuff will have to hide behind the Renaud. You can imagine like having a point of light in the center of the player, and the Renaud being a rock that is blocking the light behind it. This provides a cone-shaped safe spot if done properly. Everyone else who does not have the Shriek will have to squish to the center to avoid getting petrified. Importantly, make sure to stand outside of the Renaud's hitbox. If you stand inside the hitbox, it will not register you as being behind it. If you are newly progging the fight, I would suggest shooting your weapon when you target the Renaud to avoid accidental autos attack, which will kill the petrified Renaud, causing a wipe. If you do not see a Renaud when resolving Shriek, you can kill yourself and Shriek will not happen, which can save the run. My clear run.
I'll just kill myself.
Tony died. Tony died.
I'm just gonna kill myself.
If you see a Renaud facing inward, it's better to kill them if you don't think Curse Shriek is happening soon. Or the party will need to move away from where Renaud is facing to avoid Petrification cone. Another fun fact, both voice and Shriek debuff timer still runs while you are dead and will fire their AoEs as normal after you are rest. So make sure your debuff expires before you accept it. Desperate Measure Maneuver. There may be a time where someone will kill the Renaud by accident before the Curse Shriek debuff goes off. This is salvageable with this maneuver, and I'll let my past self explain this. Alright, let me teach you the Desperate Measure real quick. So, if we kill the Renaud by accident, because it happens, right? I think on the second or third voices, I don't remember, or third cycle, there'll be a time where the voices will align with the Renaud spawn. So what happens is one person will go to B and one person go to C, and they both aim at A. That way you cover like half of the area, and there's like 50% chance that we get the Renaud and 50% chance we don't. So after you kill the third Deathdancer, make sure to hold DPS at 65 or 66% and wait until the next Shriek cycle. This is to make sure we have LB2 during phase 3 and to give healer time to recover their mana or rest people to make sure we have 8 people at the start of phase 2. If you are progging, you can ignore this for now, but try to push after Petrification. If you have done everything properly, congratulations! You have finished the tutorial phase. Now this is where the fight really begins. Phase 2 will start with Melusine casting Venomous Tail. which grant 2 random player a poison debuff that needs to be cleansed immediately. Both bards and healers can cleanse this. To avoid double cleansing the same person, we created a priority system. One bard and healer will go from top to bottom of the party list, and the other go from bottom to top. If this debuff is not cleansed immediately, it will deal 1000 rate-wide damage and 2 ticks can cause a wipe. Make sure to make this a priority unless you have a voice debuff, because cleansings will also face you towards the target, which can purify the whole party and cause a wipe. Also, make sure that everyone's party list is in the same order. If not, you can manually set the party order like this. There are also another priority order that some group uses with this diagram, but I can't be bothered. That's too much work. Certain section of the arena will start glowing purple. This is a poison area which causes 700 dot damage if you stand on it. After 15 seconds, it will explode and kill whoever touching it. This hazard will go outward and loop throughout the whole fight after phase 2. Don't be afraid on crossing it if needed, since it does not deal that much damage until it explodes. 4 Fatedealer Adds will spawn on the cardinal side of the maps. These adds cannot be aggroed and need to be killed as soon as possible. After a period of time, one person will be targeted with a green marker, which indicates that all the adds will hit them with an AoE attack. Each adds will deal around 1250 damage, so times 4, that is 5000 damage, which will kill most non-tank players. The fewer the adds alive during this, the less damage a person will take. If you have a paladin as an off-tank, they can use a cover on a marked person to take the damage instead. The marked person needs to communicate to help paladin know who to cover.
Cover! Cover! Help me! Cover me!
My recommended order to kill the adds is start west and then go clockwise. I'll explain why later. Remember the mechs from phase 1? Yep, they're all still happening on top of the new mechs. The only difference is instead of one healer getting voice, both healer will get the voices debuff. And due to the limited amount of space to run around, instead of having one bard cutting both Renauds, each bard will cut one. The way we do it is we assign a healer to be partnered with a bard to prioritize freezing each Renaud. Each pair will take one side, either east or west. If the Renaud spawn north and south, the west player will take south Renaud and east player will take north Renaud. And all you need to do is cut the Renaud clockwise, making sure they are on the opposite side at all time. This maneuver will help in phase 4 later. Remember to use your bind when the Renaud is in the inner cardinal, if possible. So healer can freeze the Renaud without hitting the Fate Dealer with the voice, which will give them a damage up. Sometimes, the gap between the voice debuff expiring and the Renaud spawning is really short. In this case, just hit the Renaud and don't be afraid of giving Fate Dealer a damage up. If the Renaud spawn on top of Fate Dealer, the melee and off-tank need to pay attention and try to avoid getting hit by healers' voices. If they get hit by the voice, it's their fault, not the healers. After that, Shriek will happen, normally after second adds is dead. So if you remember my order, when the Shriek happens, you guys are already at north, which is the safe spot. After you kill all 4 Fate Dealers, hold DPS again at 50 to 51%, and wait for the next Shriek cycle before pushing to phase 3. You will get 1 or 2 more Shrieks. On the second Shrieks, you have enough time to wait for the outside platform to explode before hiding behind the Renaud. When Melusine hits 50% HP, Prosector will spawn in the south of the arena, which we need to kill as soon as possible. You can use melee LB2 if you have it to burn it fast. The Prosector will cast Petrification just like Melusine, requiring the party to look away from it. Ideally, you want to kill Prosector before it casts Terror Sphere, which targets one person with Hysteria status, causing them to run randomly and most of the time, killing themselves. It will greatly help when both tanks call out their respective Petri. For example,
Petri from boss.
Add Petri. Add Petri.
So people know which one to look away from. When Prosector is killed, it signifies the start of phase 4. In this phase, whenever Melusine casts Venomous Tail, it will now target 4 players instead of 2. If you guys have already practiced the cleanse order, this shouldn't be an issue. The only difference is that you'll need to assign someone who is going to cleanse the poison player second from the top or second from the bottom to avoid double cleansing. Another new mech is whenever Melusine casts Curse Shriek, 2 person will get the debuff, 1 tank and 1 DPS. Tanks will need to swap when they see Shriek keeps being cast, and the main tank will hide on the north side of the platform while the DPS with Curse Shriek will go to the south side. If you have done everything that I've told you properly, 2 Renauds should be frozen at the opposite side of the arena from each other. This will leave a safe spot in the center of the platform. Whoever is main tanking the boss will need to move the boss to the center to avoid giving a damage up or getting petrified from the Shriek. Repeat all of that and you should be killing Melusine soon. Here are some of my tips for healer and bards. We'll start with healers. Like I said in the beginning, I do not turn off auto targeting. The reason is that when voices happens, it's always followed by fireballs anyway, so you should be using your AoE heal, which does not turn your character. Second tip is that the main boss doesn't do that much damage, so have your pure healer cast a regen on your main tank and that should be enough to sustain him throughout the whole fight. Make sure to focus on your off tank and physical range HP more. Range CPS should be top up or have a shield on them to survive their fireballs. Number 3. When there are no Renauds to be frozen, don't be afraid to move away from the center of the platform to reduce your chance of petrifying someone. But make sure to pay attention where everyone is when throwing out your voices. There are multiple occasions where my healer keep freezing everyone because they are not paying attention where everyone is. Number 4. When you are petrifying a Renaud, don't be afraid to standing in front of them. If they are tethered to someone, they can't hit you. This will help petrifying both Renauds without accidentally hitting the kiter. Now let's jump to the part. And oh boy, listen carefully. As you know, there are 4 possible spots where Renaud can spawn in phase 1. First is with the easy one. When the Renaud spawn in this area, make sure to grab the Renaud closest to the Melusine to avoid accidentally tethering it to or bashing one of your party member in the melee range. After that, grab the south Renaud. Try to line south Renaud at the south and use your bind. After that, all you need to do is to run either west or east. If the Renaud spawn north and south, I'll grab the north Renaud and immediately bind the south Renaud, since it's already in the south. Because after it is frozen, I will kill the south Renaud facing inward. Fine. Okay. If the Renaud have a curse west and east spawn, grab whichever the furthest from you and move south first before hitting the second Renaud to provide a gap between you and the Renaud. If not, then Renaud will hit you immediately after you hitting them. The Renaud will not reach the healer that fast, so you can take some time before hitting it. In this pattern, I'll bind the furthest Renaud when it reaches the intercardinal and run across it. All you need to do is communicate to your group to adjust. I find it too risky to try and align the Renaud perfectly to the south, so it's better to make the group adjust. This is a really important tip. Let me teach you how I kite the Renaud. So, after I hit both Renaud, I will sheath my weapon. After they line up in the desired spot, I will press my bind skill and then sheath my weapon right away. This is very important to avoid accidentally auto-attacking a frozen Renaud. Number 2, you can also communicate to the healer where you are going so they know how to position themselves to freeze the Renaud without freezing you. Usually, I'm just saying I'm going to the left or right is enough.
That one is not frozen, going to 3.
Number 3, if you have Curse, Shriek, or Voice, it's better to let your Kobold to handle the next set of Renaud and have you focus on resolving those mechanics to avoid wiping. Number 4, during the third Shriek in phase 1, Renaud will spawn while Shriek is happening. To resolve this easily, I prefer grabbing the north Renaud and then using my point on the south Renaud regardless of the position. There's a high chance that the Shriek will freeze the south Renaud and now you only have to kite one Renaud around. Pro tip! If you stand just outside of the southernmost Renaud that is frozen, the Shriek will resolve before any Renaud reaches you. If the Renaud spawn west and east during this, grab the furthest one and bind the closer one after you make a gap. Remember, Renaud can still hit you while bound, so make sure to stay far away. After that, you can run north and give yourself space to move around. Wait until Shriek happens and then go south after. The next tip is take a second before trying to grab a Renaud to see if they are frozen or not. There will be times where Shriek resolve right as Renaud spawn. You can tell if they are frozen by looking at the club. If it's still, then they are frozen, while unfrozen Renaud's club is moving up and down. The next tip, in the case of both Renauds frozen, kill the farthest Renaud from the main boss, and have everyone scoots closer to avoid inward voices. Next step, don't be afraid to ask a bind from your Kobold or ninja if needed. Utilize all the tools that your party have, not only yours.
Bind if you have it.
Yeah. After... Okay, binding now.
Another tip, if you are not a kiter, and you notice that the kiter is approaching your side of the arena, give him some space so you guys do not overlap a fireball. You can also put a sign on top of both parts if it helps see each other to avoid overlap. Next tip, don't be afraid of hitting a healer with one fireball while kiting. They should be casting AoE heals anyway, so they are healing themselves. Next tip, if the both part dies, communicate this to the rest of the party. One melee player will need to grab the Renaud in your place while you're getting rest, and then you can still bind it after you are back to keep the run going. This is where ninja excels for this fight because they have their own bind skill. The only job that can't be flexed is Monk, which in this case often will have to kite the Renaud. Next tip, if you are a kiter, you do not have to DPS. Your job is more important. You have to believe that your group have enough DPS to kill the boss. Greeting will usually result in getting frozen from Petrification or freezing everyone else's with voices. Please, play it safe. Last tip, if you're not a cutter and you see someone is frozen, stand on them so that the fireball kill them. The idea is to kill them so that the healer can rest them faster. Now, this is the general tip for the whole group. For phase 2 onward, the Renaud does not have to be perfectly opposite of each other. As long as the Renaud are not beside each other, it should give enough space for people to hide behind them safely. And then in phase 4, if you have Shriek, only worry about the person with other Shriek. If Renaud placement is crooked, make sure you adjust so you don't get hit by the other Shriek, and your other party member will have to adjust. I really hope this monstrosity of a guide helps. This took a long time to make, so I'd really appreciate it if you put a like, comment, and subscribe if this guide helps your proc. Good luck on your proc, Raiders! My name is Fatedealer, and I hope you have fun.